Everybody to the Empowering Women meetup. Got to meet Danielle and hear from her several times at Empowering Women, and y'all are in for a treat. So, Danielle, take it away.
Well, thank you, Charlie. And since it's a small group, I'd love to hear where Amber and Yolanda are for, and Kim can introduce herself too. If you don't mind, Charlie, can we just go
Oh,
around and
yeah, we
introduce
can start there for sure.
Amber? You want to share where you're coming from?
Sure. I'm part of the Empowering Pumps team, Empowering Women's team, and I am in Chicago, so it is extremely cold here
Oh,
right now.
yes, you are. Were you at the conference last month?
It was wonderful.
I was going to say you looked familiar, so I'm glad to hear that you could make it. That's great.
Yeah, she's at registration and running around. We were all doing
Yeah.
extra duty this time for sure.
Oh, I know. With Becca not being there, that was I'm sure you all missed having her around.
Yeah, timing was great. But I love our team. We make it work and make everything happen. So um, it was a great event, and y'all brought it too with your speaker. So
Mhm. Yeah, Marty, our CEO, was speaking there. In fact, just this week it was announced that she'll be retiring in February. So,
what a
um,
treat that we got then.
yeah, so you got her very last opportunity to speak at Empowering Women, at least as an employee at Mueller. I'm sure she'll still stay active post-retirement. But Kim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Kim Lopop. I work at Mueller Water Products. I'm actually located in Decatur, Illinois, so about 3 hours south of Chicago. It's cold here too. I have been with Mueller now for over 28 years, and I'm the director of our customer experience team.
Wonderful. Thanks,
Love
Kim.
that.
Thank you.
And how about you, Yolanda?
Hi, I'm Yolanda. So I'm in the Greenville, South Carolina area. I've been working with TTI for the last 6 years with training and development, more so with leadership development in the last 4 months. So I have some new team peers that have suggested coming to this session.
Wonderful. Well, I'm glad you all joined us, and I guess we'll just go ahead and jump into the content. I am hoping that this is more conversational than presenting, but I can present some ideas to kind of get us going and thinking about it. When I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, particularly as it pertains to women in manufacturing or women in industry, that typically we end up being in male populated environments, and I've been in male populated environments ever since college with the military and landscaping and construction and then manufacturing, for years and years. So one of my earlier mistakes in leadership, I think, was around this misbelief that I had that I needed to be more like a man or more masculine or lead in a manly way. And it wasn't anything that I actively told myself. It was just this belief that if I have to, if I'm going to do well in this environment, then I have to, act and be more like the people that I'm leading. And, some of the best advice that I got, I don't know, a handful of years ago, 5 years ago or so, when I was worried about going into a director level role where I was the first woman in international paper to have this particular role. And I thought, well, how am I going to be like him or like him? And one of my male friends actually pulled me aside and said, don't worry about being like them. Worry about doing it like Danielle Pfeister would do it. You don't have to be like them. You can lead in your true authentic self with who you are and bring your special touch to the role. And so it was so simple, but just really very liberating to think I don't have to try to be like someone else. I can lead powerfully without compromising who I am. And so that's kind of the overarching talk, but I'm going to be pretty vulnerable and share some things with you all today. I'm glad it's a small group because that's always hard to do when it's a lot of people on the call. But part of what I want to talk about is how do you lead? How do you lead from a place of alignment? How do you lead from a place of authenticity where your actions are aligned with your words, that are aligned with your values and your beliefs? And the three C's that I think can help us think in this framework is around clarity, conviction, and compassion. And I'll talk a little bit more about those three. But before I do that, I'll just quickly jump into a summary of my life. I'm married with three children. Um, I am the VP of HR at Mueller Water Products just since April of last year. So this coming April will be 2 years already. But I was with International Paper for the last 13 years. I was in the Air Force for 15 years, originally from Columbus, went to Ohio State, undergrad in psych, master's in human resources management, but this is new. Diagnosed recently with breast cancer on August 20th of this year, which was actually my 49th birthday. And a lot of people say, "Oh, wow, that's awful." And it is. I mean, cancer, nobody wants to get the C word. It's no fun. But for me, and here's what I'd love to share is that that cancer diagnosis was like a giant infusion of life for me because last year, and Charlie knows this, I had talked about my mom on the stage in October when we were down in New Orleans. And my mom was struggling with health, but 6 weeks after that conference, she passed away tragically and somewhat unexpectedly. And in fact, this Friday, the 14th, is the 1 year anniversary of her passing. And probably like some of you, I mean, my mom was such a huge part of my life. We were close, and losing her, even though I have a deep faith and I knew I would see her again and all those things, I really struggled with a profound sadness and a sense of resignation that I really couldn't shake. Despite all the things that I know and all of my faith, I just was struggling. And so on my 49th birthday, when I went in for my test and I got this information, ironically, and only by the grace of God, that information just, as I said, infused me with life and the desire to live vibrantly and to live with purpose and to live authentically, to be who I am and who God created me to be in this world with the purpose that I have. So for me, this breast cancer diagnosis, while unsettling and nobody wants it, it just flipped a switch in me that needed to be flipped. And so I share a lot of what I'm sharing with you today with that as my framework and as the background of what I'm currently dealing with. Incidentally, I have chosen a more alternative path, so I'm not going down the conventional path of surgery and radiation and hormone blockers at this point. I have chosen alternative therapies, and I'm very hopeful that will heal and have progression. If anybody's ever interested in learning about alternative healing in this space, I've learned so much, but I'm excited for that because I'm not going to lose my hair and I'm not going to hopefully have to go through some of those more conventional treatments. But nevertheless, it is a process and it's as much spiritual as it is physical. And it just gives me great honor to share some of this with all of you today.
Danielle, I have to stop you for a second because
Yeah,
of conference and Paige's um, presentation.
yeah.
I know that that was probably pretty hard for you to stay in the room and go through that, but hopefully it gave you hope. And there's always a lot of different ways to deal
Yeah.
with that, but finding it is the number one thing. So anyway, I just wanted to recognize that that was probably um, tough for you, and like that it's just another way that
Yeah.
your character and showed up even during that.
Mm. Well, a lot of people have dealt with it. A lot of people are dealing with it. The more you talk to people about it, like, oh, I had that, or I dealt with that, or my daughter, or my sister, or my mom. So, it's a pretty common situation. And I will share as an aside, if you're a woman with dense breasts, mammograms are not good at catching cancer early. In fact, mammogram did not see my cancer. It was an ultrasound that caught my cancer. So for years, I've chosen to not do mammograms because of my concerns with radiation. Not everybody has that concern, but I've chosen not to do mammograms, and I've done yearly ultrasounds. You have to pay out of pocket if you refuse mammograms, but they're less than $300. And thankfully, I did because it was in that ultrasound that it found my tumor. And then they said, "Hey, let's do a mammogram to just see if there's anything in the lymph nodes or anything." So I said, "Okay, I'll do a mammogram. Not that there's a medical necessity, but in that mammogram they could not see it." So had I just done the standard of care that every woman is told to go and do, they would have missed my cancer until it was big enough to feel or big enough to see, which could have been a year from now. And I would have lost all this time to respond in the way that I feel kind of empowered and able to respond with these alternative treatments. once you get to a stage 4, it's metastasized, it's all over, then yeah, your alternative thoughts get a little bit more, oh, I don't know about that, you know? So I always want to put that plug out for women that are doing that. You know, if you have dense breasts, which a lot of women do over the age of 40, mammograms are not good at seeing early cancer. So anyway, um, just my 2 cents. And I've been telling people that, and they are going out and they're like, you're right. I've always had a concern, or I've had to fight for it. And unfortunately, they have to fight for it in most of our states. In Connecticut, I think Connecticut is the only state in the US that actually by law requires you, if you have dense breasts, that you have to get be given an ultrasound after your mammogram, and it's paid for by insurance. So Connecticut is very much leaning forward in this space, but most states that is not the case, and often you know, you have to ask and pester your doctor for that referral or just pay out of pocket. So anyway,
Sharing with us,
little-
Danielle.
yeah. So back to clarity, you know, and this, cancer is an interesting thing that really helps give me clarity, or has given people clarity. You can start to see things really clearly when you are confronted with something like that. And that's part of the gift too, because it is really easy, or more easy, I think, to start seeing what are those most important things in your life. What are the non-negotiables? And for me, and probably has always been, even though I've been ambitious and I've cared about career and success and things like that, but when I think about clarity and what I want to be rooted in, it's about people and about relationships. Um, and so my mantra I've shared with people since my diagnosis, my new mantra is love unconditionally, forgive quickly, and don't sweat the small stuff. And I think that don't sweat the small stuff has been the biggest thing, because I am one of those people that, get upset about this, or something happens at work, or something with your spouse or your family or whatever it is. And then I just have to pause and say, is this the small stuff? And as I convict myself that, yeah, this has no eternal consequence. There's no eternal value in what I'm upset about right now. You know, I've got to let that go, and focus on love and forgiveness. And honestly, when you start looking at the importance of healing, you know, physical healing, it's so interconnected with our ability to heal emotionally, and to let go of the unforgiveness and bitterness and hatred, you know, all those things that can really facilitate disease, actually, when you think about that mind-body connection. So I think it's not only important because it's a nice thing to say. I honestly think this is part of my healing. I have loving, forgiving, and just letting things go is really about the clarity that I have in what I'm trying to do right now. So find your why, find your foundation, your values, your beliefs, what's important to you. It may not be the things that are on my list, but what is it for you? And get really clear about that so that you can lead with that clarity. Any thoughts here on clarity? Does this resonate at all? Or is there other things that might come to your mind when you think about your values, or the things that are most important to you? Anybody want to share any of that?
Just you can just jump on off mute or raise your hand. I know, Kim, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, I'm right there with you. I think as time goes on, as you get older, because I'm going to be 51, in a few months, that it's all about people, it's relationships, it's, being around for the people that are the most important to me.
Yeah.
My career is very important to me, but outside of here is also like that, those are my people, and got to take care of them. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's people and relationships.
Yeah, when we start all of our leadership training, it's always, understanding our strengths and but it's also your core values. And if you don't know your core values, you don't know how you're using your strengths. And so I think I was doing the strengths work, ever since business school. But once I kind of added in on top of that, the core values, when you get out of alignment with one of those, that's when you see it in your body. You start feeling it.
Yeah.
You can feel it in the room with somebody in the moment. You're like, okay, that was not in alignment with me. I'm gonna, have to think about that.
Mhm.
Um, and so the more work you do around there, you can tell it pretty
Yeah.
quickly. Hmm.
Yeah. Right. And I think that it plays into our people want authenticity. People want to find genuine and authentic people because it's just, I think it's grounding and it feels real and it feels just special. And so when they see us operating in a way that feels out of alignment, like you were describing, Charlie, people kind of resist it. They can see it, they can feel it, and you're not doing yourself any favors by trying to align with something that you're just not. So
Or to hide it because people see it. We sometimes
yeah,
we don't even realize what we're sending out into the world because we think that we're hiding it so well.
yep,
But
yep. Or nonverbals. And unfortunately for me, my face turns red. Like I just have so many telltales when I'm out of alignment. So it's better for me to just try to stay aligned because it's too embarrassing not to be. But yeah, no, that's a great point. Knowing your values, being rooted in those, and then aligning with those, even when it's hard. And that's what we'll talk about this next one. I think, conviction, um, once you have that clarity, once you have those values, it's really being committed and convicted that you're going to align with them, doing what's right, not what's easy. I think several times this year, with personnel decisions, even at Mueller, there have been some employees that we needed to terminate, and there was a belief that because for an integrity issue, for example, and the belief was, oh, that person's so important. If we lose them right now, you can impact this customer, or it's going to impact this production, or it's going to impact all of these other things, and I'm thankful to say I work for a company that is convicted and to do what's right. Even when it's hard, even when the consequence is going to be more work, more pain, other people are going to have to pick up the slack, whatever it is, sales could be impacted, maintenance, whatever the issue is. I have seen our company be able to stand up and align with my values, which is doing the right thing, even when it's not easy. And even when it'd be easier to just brush it under the rug and wait until later to deal with this issue, I've at least personally been able to be a part of watching us be convicted. And so that's been good for me because there's been some times being in a new company, you don't know. You don't know, am I going to get the right support and the backing to make this hard decision that is what's the right thing to do, but it's going to have these other concerns, or is this company going to say, yeah, let's deal with that in 6 months or after we get this done? And thankfully, it just hasn't been that way. It's been a no-brainer. When we find these things, our company is, at least in my experience, I can't speak for Cam or anyone else, but in my experience, I feel like Mueller walks the talk, and that means a lot to me given my values and beliefs. But being convicted to do those things, advocating for others, being the person, there's that one quote, have friends that talk about you or support you when you're not in the room. And I think that's so important, especially for women, that we need to lift each other up and to advocate for one another. And when you're in rooms with small circles and certain information's being shared, let's be those people that are advocating and encouraging and bringing out the good in others and talking about them in that positive light when they're not in the room. Holding standards because you believe in people's potential. But and the feedback piece, I would also say sometimes I give really, really honest feedback to the point where people are a little taken aback. Like, I can't believe you were that honest with me. And honestly, I do it out of love because I think people deserve honest feedback, even when it's maybe hard to hear. And there are times in my life where I feel like people have held off on giving me feedback because they didn't want to hurt my feelings. I knew I deserved the feedback, but they didn't want to say it. I just had to assume that was what the feedback would have been had they had the courage to say it. But I think we need to have the courage in a loving way to give that honest feedback with conviction. Because if we have that foundation of love and care and people trust us and they know that we are rooting for them when we do have to have those hard conversations about how a meeting went or how they were perceived in a particular project or whatever those things are. I think that even builds trust even further, that they know I'm not going to just give them all the sugar-coated information, that they can trust when they say, hey, I want some feedback, they're going to get it straight. So I think that's part of being convicted too, is it's not just with your own actions, but being convicted enough to share that with others and making principle-based decisions. As we go through life, whether it's in business or in life, what is the principle at play? What is the principle-based decision in this particular circumstance? And then finally, compassion. I mean, just as we've been talking this whole time, I mean, I think we need to have a lot of compassion for ourselves and compassion for others. We need grace for ourselves and for others. No one's perfect, and everyone on this call is going through something. You've got some issue in your life, some hurdle, some cross that you're bearing right now, and the reality is every single person does. So I think having a large dose of compassion for yourself and for others is really important in being able to lead from an authentic place, because people are going to make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes. Lord knows I do. And being able to ask for that forgiveness or to show that grace when people, when people have those types of mistakes. But showing compassion so that you can create a safe place for people to grow. And sometimes a safe place to grow means a safe place to fail, a safe place to risk. But maybe it didn't work out, or you made a decision that really wasn't the right one. But you have to have that compassion for that safe space for you and for others, so that you can test your limits. You can spread your wings. You can try some things. And do that in a way that doesn't lower the bar, that doesn't lower the expectation, but creates that safe place for others. And then how about this emotion piece? I mean, if you guys have kids, and Charlie, I know you have son and daughter. I mean, I've got two daughters and a son. And there's a lot of emotion in my children. There's a lot of emotion in me. There's a lot of emotion in our employees. And I think part of what makes us unique as women is our ability to handle that emotion better. We don't always handle it well, and I know I don't always, but having the grace to listen and to hear what's behind the emotion, whether it's your children, whether it's your spouse or your coworkers or an employee that is just filled with rage because of something that happened, not shutting that down, obviously putting boundaries so there's not unsafe, but we need to be able to understand the emotion, give people a safe place to share their heart, to get things out there, to be heard, to make them feel seen but also challenged at the same time. I'm sure that that's probably something you can all relate to in terms of the emotional piece, and whether it's customers too. I mean, I'm sure we've got customers and all kinds of emotion that comes at us. Would you agree that emotion is something that you feel, I mean, obviously it can be unnerving, but do you feel like it's something that you feel experienced with being able to listen and allow people to be heard? Is that something that comes naturally to you guys, or is that a struggle?
Saw some nods.
Yeah, I'm seeing some nods.
Yeah, it's come with time, it's come with age too.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely like in my 20s and 30s, probably wasn't the best listener as what I am now, like in my 40s and now early 50s, definitely comes with time. And being empathetic, that was the other thing.
Mhm.
You've got to be empathetic towards people and what they're dealing with, and just listen and stop everything. That's the one thing I do, is I stop everything, because then I'm totally focused on them.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, giving someone your undivided attention, especially in
Hmm.
a moment of emotion and crisis. And I'm with you. Like these are lessons learned over a lifetime. As I
Yes.
mentioned, I'm 49. I'll be 50 next year. But the 25 and even 35-year-old version of me was a different person. And these things that we go through, losing your parents, the cancer, divorce, whatever it is. I mean, the things that you go through, I think, help us to become more compassionate and empathetic, and just more equipped to handle those types of things and it makes us better at helping others that are going through similar things too, that we have had a chance to go through it. So I think this is a huge part to leverage when you're thinking about leading powerfully from a place of alignment and authenticity, because compassion doesn't mean weakness. Compassion is not synonymous with, oh, she's so easy and she just listens to everybody's feelings. That's not what it's about. But I mean, when you pause, like Kim just said, and you pause, give someone your attention, create that safe space for people to share their hearts and be vulnerable. I mean, when we do that right, we gain so much trust from others, and it can be such a force multiplier in moving from that and being able to work together and accomplish things together. But they're kind of like moments of crisis, and sometimes we handle them well and sometimes we don't. But I think to the extent that we can show that compassion and be present and allow people to be vulnerable, I think it really, really improves and strengthens those relationships, whatever they are, work or family or friendships. It's a huge part of strengthening relationships. And for me, as I mentioned back in the clarity slide, relationships and people are foundational. You know, they're the most important thing. Everything else is going to fall away, but people and how you make them feel and how you make them feel heard. It's really important for me and my legacy as I think about the time that I have left.
I
So
saw
yeah.
Amber. Amber, you came off mute. Did you have something to add?
Oh, I did, but Daniela was so beautiful in what she was saying that I got engrossed.
Oh
Um,
no.
I just wanted to add, like, when you're getting that feedback, whether it's coming from your spouse or your child or a coworker or a boss, I think it's also like that internal processing of this feedback is not a personal attack, or it's not a criticism of you as a person. That just we need to remember that this is how we can show up better for them.
Mm,
Just that as a reminder.
yeah.
It
And
made me think.
again, I 100% agree with, as we age,
Mm,
it gets easier to deal with these things.
mm,
Whereas in our 20s, we're so reactive
yes.
that we can't.
Yeah,
Mm,
and I think also we've learned, right? Like
Yeah.
learned by all the experiences that we've had. Even like the focus on your emotional intelligence. If you haven't ever listened to your body or took spent time to kind of try to figure yourself out, then it you just don't see it. You're just, working, trying to, do the things that were successful. Sometimes I think that's actually a blessing. I think about my 20s and how many experiences I probably would not have done, right?
yeah. Yeah.
If I knew everything that I know now, I'd be a lot more cautious, a lot more maybe less risk taking and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But it makes us who we are. But thanks for sharing that, Amber. It made me think about, always tell the children or whatever, okay, you did a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you're bad or,
Mm, yeah.
that was a bad job, we didn't execute that well. That doesn't mean that you're bad. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
Yeah. I love that. I think humility, I didn't list it as part of the process, but obviously, I mean, it goes without saying that having a humble spirit is really important for leading with authenticity and alignment, because you have to be willing to take that feedback, to listen, to hear, to discern. If you just think that you're always right and everybody else is wrong, or that you're not receptive because you just have that prideful heart, I think that hurts us too in our ability to be authentic. And how many of you have gone to either discipline or give feedback to your kids, and as you're saying, you really need to work on X, Y, or Z, and as soon as you say it, you're like, but so do I. I have to work,
Mm,
mommy has to work on that same thing. And our kids are such a mirror to our souls, right? I mean, I see things in them that as soon as I call it out in them, I'm like, yep, I struggle with that too. And I'm going to work on that too. So it's almost immediate. Like, I know where you get it. I know where you get it. You're
yes.
frustrated with me, but that means it's in me and I need to work on that too. But that's one of the blessings of kids, I suppose.
Mhm.
All right, so compassion. And then just this, I don't know if you guys have seen this on social media or something. I've seen this recently and it just really captivated my heart. It's, God gave you a fingerprint that no one else has so that you can leave an imprint that no one else can. And I thought that this really goes so well with this concept of leading powerfully from a place of alignment and authenticity, because we all have been created with a very specific uniqueness that no one else has. And the fingerprint is a perfect example of that. There's no one else like us. And so, hopefully that a comment like this or a phrase like this can motivate you to know that there's things that only you can do. There's impacts that you can only have in this life on your job, on your people, on your community, on your activities, that no one else can do it exactly like you, because you were created with this uniqueness that no one else has. And so I think that's a very motivating phrase. And I think it just reiterates the importance of knowing that we all have a purpose and something to do every day while we're here. And, do that from your authentic self and who you are. Have you guys seen this on social media? This has been floating around. Have you?
I saw
Yeah.
it. It's beautiful.
Oh, love it. I love it. I've seen it written a couple of different ways, but I liked the coloring of this.
Someone, a speaker, shared it recently too. Just thinking about the snowflakes and them all being different, and our fingerprints and all being different, and how wild that is that they
It's,
are like
yeah.
that. There's that many little differences. Oh, it's amazing.
And when you think of the billions
Yeah,
and billions of people that have been on this earth, I mean, no one, I mean, every fingerprint is absolutely unique to the point where you can know it's somebody, this person. I just think that's amazing. How many, I wouldn't think there would be that much variability, but billions and billions of billions of people throughout time with their own unique fingerprint. It's fascinating. And I do love the snowflake concept too. But anyway, so again, in summary, just really talking about the importance of leading from that place of alignment, not just because it's a good leadership technique, but it's because it's good for your health. It's good for your congruence, your mind, body, spirit to be aligned with your thoughts, behaviors, and actions. When all those things are aligned, you just feel better. And people see that you are authentic and genuine, and it's healthy for you and for the people that you're around. And so start with your why and figure out your clarity and what's important to you, and then be convicted about that, even when stakes are high and when the situation is very serious, and it may not go well for you if you stay convicted, but take that risk to stay aligned. And then the compassion that we should have for ourselves and others, allowing us to lead from that alignment and authenticity. So that's kind of the content that I had, but I'd love to talk for a few minutes if anybody has any questions or anything that they would like to share.